When we look around our world today, we see brokenness everywhere. Families torn apart, people struggling for meaning, nations in conflict, and hearts weighed down with questions no one seems able to answer. Have you ever stopped to wonder, was this really the way life was meant to be? Could it be that the world we see today is not the world God originally intended? Imagine, for just a moment, if everything we know, pain, loss, confusion, suffering, was never part of God's plan in the first place. What if life was designed to be something far greater, something more beautiful, something humanity has somehow lost along the way? That's the mystery we're diving into today, understanding God's original purpose. Long before history books were written, before nations rose and fell, before humanity even tasted struggle, there was an intention, pure, powerful, and perfect. And if we could uncover that original design, maybe we'd also uncover the key to why our world feels so incomplete today. Think about it, when you create something, whether it's a painting, a story, or even just a plan for your future, there's a purpose behind it. You don't just throw colors on a canvas for no reason, or write words on a page without meaning. The same is true for life itself. If God created the world, then surely He had an original purpose, a vision of how things were meant to be. And the real question we have to ask ourselves is this: are we living anywhere close to that purpose today? Now, here's where the story begins to get interesting. The ancient texts tell us of a beginning that was flawless. A world where harmony wasn't just a dream, but a reality. A life where peace and joy were not temporary feelings, but the very atmosphere in which people lived. No wars, no heartbreak, no fear, just perfection, God's perfection. But then something happened. Something so significant that it shook the entire course of history and changed the destiny of every single person who ever walked this earth. This is not just a story about the past. It's about now. Because if we can truly understand God's original purpose, then maybe we can also understand the reason for our struggles, the reason life feels so incomplete, and most importantly, the reason there is still hope. In this journey, we're not just going to talk about creation or ancient stories. We're going to dig into the human heart. We're going to uncover why humanity was given life, what our role was meant to be, and why it feels like something vital has been lost. And trust me, the deeper we go, the more shocking the truth becomes. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let me ask you this: if God's original plan was truly perfect, if He really intended the world to be free of pain and suffering, then how did we end up here, living in a world so far from that vision? That's the question we'll begin to unravel in the next part of this story, and the answer may not be what you expect. The conflict begins the moment we realize that something went terribly wrong with humanity's story. If God's original purpose was harmony and perfection, then why does every generation seem to inherit more pain than the last? It's as though humanity has been walking in circles, chasing after peace but always ending up in the same place. Restless, divided, and confused. Somewhere along the way, something precious slipped out of our hands, and the world has never been the same since. That is the heart of the conflict we're exploring. The tension between the life we were meant to live and the reality we wake up to each day. Different people feel this conflict in different ways. Some sense it in their families, wondering why love is so fragile. Others feel it in society, where injustice never seems to go away. For some, it's deeply personal, a quiet ache in the soul, a search for purpose that no amount of success, wealth, or recognition can fill. This universal longing suggests that the problem isn't just individual. It's something humanity as a whole has been carrying for centuries. And then there are the voices of doubt. Some argue that maybe this is just the way life is, messy, unpredictable, and broken beyond repair. But deep down, doesn't every human heart whisper for more? That inner longing points to a bigger story, one where the conflict is not simply about surviving in a broken world, but about uncovering why the brokenness exists in the first place. The real tension lies in the possibility that humanity chose a different path than the one God intended. But how and why did that happen? And what if the very answer to that mystery still shapes our world today? It is in this tension that the story sharpens. Imagine a world created in perfect balance, and then picture that balance suddenly shifting, like a scale tipped over by unseen hands. From that moment on, humanity has been caught in a struggle between what was meant to be and what actually is. The closer we look, the more unsettling it becomes. Every act of kindness seems shadowed by selfishness, every hope interrupted by fear, every dream interrupted by the reality of loss. It feels as though something invisible is holding humanity back from stepping into the life God originally designed. This conflict isn't just found in ancient writings. It's written into our everyday lives. Parents worry for their children's future, leaders fail to bring lasting peace, and individuals wrestle with emptiness in the quiet corners of their hearts. The original purpose promised joy, but the present reality delivers pain. The contrast is so sharp that it almost demands an answer. Could it be that the world is not simply broken by accident, but that humanity itself took a turn that redirected history? The suspense grows when we realize the pattern repeats itself across time. Civilizations rise, searching for power and meaning, only to collapse under their own flaws. People build relationships only to watch them unravel. Generations chase after progress, yet the same questions remain unanswered. It feels like humanity is standing on the edge of a mystery that refuses to stay hidden. And here lies the most pressing question. If God's purpose was so perfect, and humanity has strayed so far from it, what was the exact moment that shifted everything? That moment of decision, the turning point, holds the secret to why our world is the way it is. But uncovering it won't be easy. But just when the story seems clear, another twist begins to unfold. The first conflict was humanity stepping away from God's original purpose. But the deeper we look, the more we see that it wasn't just a single choice long ago. It's a choice that keeps repeating. That is the real shock. The turning point didn't only happen in the beginning, it keeps happening now every single day. The same tension that pulled the first humans away from perfection is still pulling at us, reshaping our world and our lives in ways we barely notice until it's too late. This realization raises the stakes higher than ever. If the problem isn't locked in history, but alive in the present, then the conflict is far more personal. Suddenly, it isn't just about why the world is broken, but about how each of us might unknowingly be part of the same struggle. The longing for purpose clashes with the temptation to settle for less. The desire for peace collides with choices that invite chaos. And every decision pushes humanity closer either to rediscovering God's original purpose or drifting further away from it. The surprise here is how easily the story hides in plain sight. We see evidence of it everywhere, in systems built on greed, in relationships strained by pride, in dreams cut short by fear. It's as if an unseen current is carrying humanity away from the life we were meant to live, and we are caught in it without even realizing. The more we fight against it, the stronger it seems to pull. This is where the suspense thickens. If humanity once stood at the edge of a perfect beginning and turned away, and if that same pattern continues to echo through every life, then the conflict is not just ancient, it is immediate. Which means the next chapter of the story is not only about uncovering what went wrong in the past, but also about recognizing the struggle happening right now. The unanswered question presses closer. If this force has been shaping human history from the very beginning, is there any way to break free from it? Or are we forever locked in the cycle, drifting further from God's original purpose with each passing moment? And then the story reaches its breaking point. The tension between what God intended and what humanity chose can no longer be ignored. The climax begins when we finally see the weight of that turning point, the moment humanity traded God's perfect purpose for something far less. In that choice, the harmony of creation cracked. Perfection shattered. A new reality rushed in, one filled with fear, pain, and separation. And ever since that moment, the world has lived with the echoes of that decision. It is here that the main conflict finds its resolution. The reason our world feels broken is because we stepped away from the very design that gave us life. But just as the story seems settled, something unexpected happens. The revelation is not only about loss, it is also about possibility. If humanity once lived in alignment with God's original purpose, then that purpose has never disappeared. It still exists, like a blueprint hidden beneath the ruins, waiting to be rediscovered. This is the twist that changes everything. The same God who designed perfection never abandoned it. His purpose didn't end when humanity turned away. It has been waiting, constant and unshaken, through every age of history. This realization sends shockwaves through the narrative. The conflict wasn't only about explaining why the world is broken. The deeper truth is that even in our brokenness, there is still a way back. Every longing for peace, every search for meaning, every ache in the human heart is a reminder that the original purpose is still calling to us. And that calling isn't just about a distant hope, it's about a present choice. Yet the climax holds one last twist. Rediscovering God's purpose is not automatic. It requires a response, a willingness to step out of the cycle that has trapped humanity for so long. That is what makes the ending both satisfying and unsettling. The answer has been revealed, but the responsibility shifts to us. Will we continue drifting further away, repeating the same mistakes, or will we dare to reclaim the life God intended from the very beginning? The story resolves, but the suspense lingers because the next move belongs to us. As the story settles from its climax, the picture becomes clearer. The journey we've taken, from the perfection of God's original purpose, through humanity's choice to step away, into the brokenness that followed, leads us to one undeniable truth. The design has always been greater than the destruction. Even when the world feels dark and uncertain, the fingerprints of that original purpose are still visible all around us. In the laughter of a child, in acts of kindness that break through hate, in the beauty of creation itself, we catch glimpses of what life was meant to be. These glimpses remind us that God's plan was never erased, only interrupted. The lingering questions find their answers here. Why does the world feel incomplete? Because it was never meant to look like this. Why do we long for peace and wholeness? Because deep inside, our hearts remember what was lost. Why does hope refuse to die, even in the hardest moments? Because God's purpose has never stopped calling us back. The conflict resolves not by pretending the pain doesn't exist, but by realizing it was never the final word. The subplots we've touched on, the struggles in families, the failures in society, the quiet ache within individuals, all connect back to this one truth. The brokenness is real, but so is the invitation to live differently. That's what makes the ending powerful. It doesn't erase the past, but it opens the door to a future shaped by God's original design. And now, as we close this story, the reflection turns personal. Each of us must decide what to do with the knowledge we've uncovered. Will we ignore the longing inside and keep living as though this broken world is all there is? Or will we dare to believe that life can still align with God's purpose? The choice will always remain with us. So the story ends here, not with a final period, but with an open invitation. The world was meant for perfection, and the same God who created that perfection is still calling humanity back to it. The journey is not finished. It continues with the steps we choose to take today.